All right, well, it's finally here. Championship weekend, Vikings versus the Sea Devils. It's going to be a great matchup. And let's start with just kind of the keys to this game. And I think one of them will be that the Sea Devils, if they want to have a shot, have to limit Xavier Edwards' impact on the game. And he plays defense, he plays corner, he plays safety. He's a kick returner. They'll put him in an offense like here and have him run the ball. So you have to know as a Sea Devils player where he is at all times on the football field. He's run for a couple touchdowns this year. He's had some nice returns. He picked me off in Vienna. We ran a post route from the opposite side of the field. He was the corner. He was the corner on the boundary side. We ran a post from the field side, and he ran all the way over, 30 yards and picked the ball up. I have never seen a corner do that. So he's a great player, and the Sea Devils have to limit his impact on the game if they want to have a shot. Another player that the Sea Devils obviously have to try and contain is Jordan Bua. He can take over a game as well from receiver with just explosive, take the top off type plays. And if the Sea Devils want to limit explosive plays, they have to know where he is on the field at all times, try and double him, try and jam him off the line, give them different looks so that they can't take shots like this that are just backbreakers for a defense. Now, the Vienna Vikings are a physical football team. They're going to try and run the ball. They're going to try and establish the run, set up play action, take their shots when appropriate. But I think what really separates them in this game is their quarterback play. I think Jackson Erdman has played very well all season, and I'll tell you what impresses me the most about him, just from watching the games, having seen him in person, is he just doesn't care if he gets absolutely killed all game. I remember watching this game, the Barcelona game, and you'll see here, he was under duress, pressured, hit, sacked all day. He was sacked 5 times in this game. Barcelona was getting after him, and it just didn't matter. He went out and threw, you see plays like this where he's hit, he scrambles around, finds the open guy, and makes a play, and all he does at the end of the game is throw a 90-yard touchdown pass to win. This was after 5 sacks, countless amount of hits and pressures all day. So the Hamburg Sea Devils, they have a heck of a pass rush, a really good defense. I think if there's a quarterback in the league that can withstand that sort of pressure all day and keep firing downfield, it's Jackson Erdman. So that's something else to watch for in this game. Now, if you're a big fan of big man football, front sevens, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker play, fullbacks, tight ends, run blocking, this is going to be the game to watch. It's going to be exciting just to watch these lines battle it out. The front seven of the Vienna Vikings are really, really talented. They're really, really fundamentally sound. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They don't over pursue. You rarely catch them with bad eyes or bad technique. And so I think it's going to be a good matchup for Hamburg, who probably has one of the best offensive lines in the league. The way they work together in sync to create holes for Tunga, and then the way that Tunga is just an absolute monster, and 9 times out of 10 is going to make that first unblocked defender miss. And I'll show you what I mean here. So the right guard for Hamburg is going to pull. They're going to use their fullback to kick out this end man on the line of scrimmage here for the Raiders. And Tunga's going to start off to the left. Then he's going to cut back right, follow his fullback, and basically there's one guy on this play that's unblocked, and it's this safety walking down in the box. That's Tunga's guy. He has to make him miss, and 9 times out of 10, he does. So really, this game is going to be back to just old school football fundamentals. It's going to be filling your gaps on defense. Offensive line is going to be communicating, getting off those blocks, working those double teams, and then it's going to come down to tackling. If the Vienna Vikings can tackle Glenn Tunga with those unblocked guys, then the Hamburg Sea Devils are going to have a hard time this weekend, just because so much of what they do is based on the run game. RPOs, play action, their deep shots, they all come off of that run game. Let's watch this one through. Watch. Glenn Tunga is going to have one guy to beat here. The Hamburg Sea Devils do a great job of taking care of that first and second level. There's one guy they can't block. That's that strong safety rotating down, and Tunga's just going to make a miss. This is why the Hamburg Sea Devils kill you. If you over pursue like the Raiders do here, and if you miss tackles, it's going to be a really long day. Now, like I said, everything is based off of this run game for the Hamburg Sea Devils. Here, this is a simple RPO, and the quarterback has essentially 3 different options on this play. He can either hand the ball off to Tunga. It's inside, it looks to me like inside zone. He can either hand the ball off to Tunga here. He can throw the pop pass to this tight end, which he does, or if he likes his numbers, he can also throw the bubble. So it's 2-on-2 on the outside here, so the bubble's kind of automatically out. So essentially, what you're reading here as a quarterback is A.J. Wetland, this linebacker. If he pursues the running back Tunga, which, I mean, I probably would, right? He's maybe the best running back in the league, maybe a potential MVP candidate. Of course, the defense is keying in on him. As an offense, you're just going to replace him with what we call a tight end pop. And there's a previous video where the Frankfurt Galaxy have this play. You can go watch it, where I break down the tight end pop a little bit more. But essentially, Cisse, he's just reading A.J. Wetland here. Whatever step he makes is wrong. If A.J. Wetland stays, he'll hand the ball off. If he pursues, then he's just going to throw this tight end pop pass that replaces him. Now, when you play that Vienna Vikings defense as the Sea Devils, it's hard to get a read on what they're doing. They don't bring a lot of pressures. They don't bring a lot of, blitzes. But what they do is they give you different looks up front. And everything in the run game is based off of that box count and that look that you're getting on the line pre-snap. So I'll show you what I mean. So right here, they're in a 3-man front. So it's really 3 down linemen like you see here, and they're playing coverage behind it. So as an offensive line, it's just something to decipher pre-snap and work through. Now, they'll line up in a 3-man front 1 down. The next down, they'll line up in a 4-man front, like here. All right, you see we got 4 down linemen. We're playing it's like a 4-2-5 behind it, which means 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers, 5 DBs. So just again, as an offensive line, the Vienna Vikings, they put a lot of looks on film as far as up front. And as an offensive line, you have to sort through that because it changes your entire blocking scheme. Now, they'll line up in a 3-man front, they'll line up in a 4-man front, then they'll walk a linebacker down or even bring in an extra defensive lineman and put 5 guys on the line. So, again, I expect the Vienna Vikings to do a lot of this, kind of mixing it up just to make life a little bit tougher on those Hamburg Sea Devils offensive linemen, tight ends, and fullbacks. And really, all you're trying to do is make them communicate on offense. When there's communication, sometimes there's miscommunication. So just look for and pay attention when you're watching this game to kind of the games that the Vienna Vikings are trying to play up front.
Well, David, thank you so much for getting on this call with me. Kind of a last minute thing. I think I texted you like 30 minutes ago and asked if you wanted to do this. You said I'm down, and here we are.
Thanks for having me, Randy.
Obviously, it's a championship weekend coming up, right? But I want to hear how David's doing. How is David doing? I think the last time people heard from you, we were losing 30-0 to the Trio Raiders. So what's been going on since? I think you had a pretty controversial Instagram story there about cutting off the wrong fingers and all that. But what's what's David been up to since that time?
Yeah, so yeah, moved back stateside. So I'm back in Wisconsin now. I did sign a contract with a league called MLFB. And so I moved down to Alabama for a few weeks until that league folded pretty abruptly.
What happened with
Which
that? You gotta expound
yeah.
more on that because that was crazy.
So yeah, it was honestly I was pretty excited about the opportunity. Four teams, say they were focusing on being a D league, trying to compete with your USFLs, your XFLs. Um, it just there's a bunch of great talent there. There was, and I hope those guys find other opportunities, whether it's USFL or XFL. But we're practicing 13 days in a row. You got 2 days, your lifts throughout the day, at least 8 hours of meetings. Between your morning, your afternoons, and then evening before bed. So we're full blown professional camp. Like we're all in. And then on the 14th or 15th today the hotels would not let us back in after our exit because the league had not been paying our room bill. So we all assumed the league just folded, and half the guys went home. The other half were like, "What's going on? Like, I need a flight home." It was an absolute disaster. If you're interested, just hashtag MLFB. You guys can look up and see the different stories on it. It was wild, but I made it out of there alive. On to different things. Keep
On
moving,
the
right?
on the different things, you want to talk about what you're working on football, or we'll just keep it at that?
We'll just keep it at that,
We'll keep it at that.
Right.
We'll see what David's up to in the future. So, but yeah, obviously David he's a hell of a tight end. Well, the best tight end I've ever played with. It was fun playing with you. It's kind of unfortunate what happened with the surge. I think everyone probably hasn't heard what really happened, but we can just say it wasn't. It wasn't. I don't know. It was unfortunate for the players. It was unfortunate for our teammates. That's I think who I feel the worst for. It's just those guys that you bleed and sweat with in camp, and then you go out there and what happened. What happened, and then obviously what happened after we left happened, which was also not good. But do you think that the Surge have any chance next season of kind of rebuilding, or how do you think that process is going to go?
I don't know. The reason why I resigned with Stuttgart is because I was optimistic. I think they do have the guys. And I'm not sure what they're doing with the import rules. I've heard there might be some changes with the EU roster spots. In my opinion, they need to open up the roster import spot entirely. Have it being unlimited, which will allow teams like Istanbul to be on a more solid playing field with your teams from Germany. Clearly, in Europe, the best football is in Germany. So when you have players that aren't necessarily good enough to sell themselves to Barcelona or Poland and ask for those professional contracts, maybe they can play for a team like Istanbul or down in Zurich or whatever as the league continues to expand. But I'm not sure what they're doing with those rules. But if Stuttgart gets the right players, which I think they did a fair job this season, and I think we did have a good roster, but things didn't go so
What happened?
well.
What happened, Dave? Why did it turn out the way that it did?
I think it wasn't the best organization. Not like as a whole, but like when it came to the fine details of things, um, between decisions or scheduling or however you want to look at it, it just wasn't exactly organized. There are some phenomenal coaches in Stuttgart. Coach Mike, he's a hell of a coach. I got to work with him in 2021 for the Barcelona game, week one. Coach
Coach
Andy is
Streeter.
now with Frankfurt. Coach Streeter
Yeah.
is a great coach.
Yeah.
I think he's really good with personnel. He has a really good eye for talent. So I think he's going to do a great job this offseason finding the right guys. So, I mean, the pieces are there. There's missing pieces for them to go 0-12, which is a shame. And I feel bad only for the fans, but for the players, because there are a bunch of talented guys in Stuttgart that want to play for the city. They want to play for the Surge, and they're good enough to play in the ELF. And they have to deal with a terrible situation because it's unorganized. But I believe if Streeter is putting together the roster this offseason, I think they'll be just fine.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm not trying to bash on the Surge. Obviously, we still got a lot of friends there, and feel bad for what happened, and more too that we couldn't do anything to help. It's just like you feel helpless when you're watching a game like week 9 and they're getting killed,
Right.
just like we were getting killed, and you're sitting at home watching it. You can't do anything about it. And there's some great people in the organization. So if they can just, like you said, I don't think they got to do a bunch of things to turn it around. I think they're only a couple pieces away and some organizational decisions away from putting together a successful team. Plus, they're in a great city. Those fans are awesome too. Those fans have got to be some of the best things about the team.
Right.
What do they have? 2,000 people at the last game when they're 0-11. I mean, like that shows you the type of fans that they have. So
right, and they always brought energy.
Yeah, dude, I remember the first game we were playing Barcelona. We were getting killed, right? I mean, it was awful. Probably one of the worst games that I've ever been a part of. And we got a safety. Was it a safety? Like in the third or fourth, late in the third quarter, maybe, or fourth quarter.
Meaningless.
Meaning we were down by 30. That crowd went insane for a safety. It was like 30-2 or something, and you would have thought we won the Super Bowl. So that's just the type of fans that they are. So
right.
they deserve some wins.
Right, they deserve more for sure, 100%.
Yeah. So something that I thought was interesting was just kind of doing the video for this week was we played in the first 4 weeks of the season, right? That you and I were together. We played 3 of the 4 teams that represent the ELF in the playoffs. Right, we played Barcelona week 1.
Yep.
Then we played.
Well, I mean, our conference is just brutal. Frankfurt, even though their roster is completely different from their championship roster, still a great squad of guys. I mean, they finished the season 7-5, I believe, and we're always competing week in and week out with any team they stepped on the field with. So, I mean, they were a good team. And then the Raiders, phenomenal, and they're coached to a T. And then you have Vienna. So,
yeah, you talk about 2 really well coached teams. 3, I mean, Barcelona, the Raiders, and the Vikings. I mean, just the whole operation was impressive with Vienna. Like when we went there, just the way I know we had like a dedicated like representative from the Vikings to help us with the entire stay. That stadium was amazing. I know they kind of got screwed. What was it last week for the playoff game? But that stadium is amazing. And then just the fans, the Skull chant, that everything from the music being played in the stadium to like the grass on the field it was perfect. Really impressive to kind of see that whole operation. And obviously they were a really good team. I don't know if I've ever been more sore after a game than when we played Vienna. I got killed that game, but that's what I think is interesting with this matchup. I think it's going to be 2 of the best front sevens in the league squaring off, which is, I think, going to be a kind of good chess match to watch. But you played with Vienna's quarterback, right, Jackson Erdman?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's what's I know we're gonna do predictions in a little bit, but that's what's so tough about the decision of predicting this game is because Jackson's a good friend of mine. Played with him in fan control football. Uh, he was actually the hotel room over because the league put us in a hotel. So just two guys from the Midwest chasing some football dreams. So, and it's awesome to see him. I know this last offseason, he reached out to me and he was like, I want to come out to Europe, blah, blah, blah. Like, how do I go about it? And I was like, just reach out to as many coaches as possible to see where you land. Vienna had the opportunity to sign him, and, Vienna has a historic American football program for Europe, great organization. Like you just said, like they do everything really well. So I'm glad he signed with them, and he's on a championship contending roster. So couldn't be more stoked for him, and I'm excited to see how he does this weekend.
Yeah, he's fun to watch, and not because he's gonna run for 150 yards or juke somebody, but the way he just stands in there, goes through his progressions, throws an accurate and good football. Like I saw, I think it was, and I mentioned it in the video, but like they were playing Barcelona earlier in the season in Barcelona, and he was getting killed. I think they sacked him 5 times. They probably hit him 15, and it didn't matter. They were down two by I think 2 scores. He just stood in there, kept firing, let him back down the field to win the game. And I mean, he's a big kid. He's what, 6'4", 220, 230. So he'll just stand in there. He doesn't care. And I think that,
Right.
yeah, like you said, I mean, we can get into predictions if you want, but that's why I like Vienna. I don't know what you think, but I just feel like the quarterback play and Cisse is great. He's fun to watch, but I just think that Hamburg, they can get after the quarterback. And I don't think it's necessarily going to matter this week. Not that he's not, Jackson will, he might throw a pick or whatever, but he's going to stand there for 4 quarters and just keep firing. And I don't know if Hamburg has played anybody like that this season. I don't know.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, Jackson is a prototype QB, tall, is not afraid to take a hit, stands in the pocket, and, you might hit him 3 or 4 times in the first half, but on that fifth time when you don't quite get to him, he's going to slice you up. And that's the biggest problem, especially with a receiver like Jordan Boa. And, I mean, I'm so impressed with him because, there's a lot of good EU players, but, like, he stands out. When you see him, you're like, oh, is this guy from the States? Because he plays on another level. He's down the field 40, 50 yards, and the ball is just flying through the air. And he finds a way to get under it. And I think that's going to happen probably 2 or 3 times this weekend. And it's just not something you can stop. You can try to scheme against it, but you just can't stop it. So I think that's going to be a
So
big part of Vienna. Is taking deep shots, and then of course relying on their fair run game.
So before I get your prediction, if we want, and guys, I don't know how this is gonna work. We'll see how this works here. Let's do this here.
Yeah, I can see it.
You see it?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay. All right. Oh, here we go. Okay. Here. Hey, right off the bat, here's what you're talking about with Jordan Bua, right? This was the game-winning play against Barcelona. Jackson just rips 160 yards for him. And like, if you're a defensive coordinator, right, David, how are you stopping this? What are you doing?
I mean, it's tough because you got the corner pretty high on him right now. He's at the top. You got the corner at like 9 yards, and then the safety falls back because they know he's going deep. It kind of looks like a skinny post, take two, but it doesn't matter because he trusts Jackson's arm to just go. He's not slowing up out of that break at all on that skinny post. He's just sprinting to the center of the field, and that ball travels what 40 to 50 yards in the air because I
Oh
think
yeah, dude.
Jackson's
I think
like on the 2 yard line.
yeah, I think more than
Yeah,
that, man. He launches this thing. I think it's like almost
he's
60.
yeah,
That's the
that's
the
60.
39. Yeah, that he threw it from the 2 to the 39, 38. That's almost 60-yard ball in the air
Right.
on an
And
American DB.
fi- finds a way to get to it because if you scroll back just a little bit, you
Yeah.
can see it's such a difficult catch because it gets past his shoulders. When you have a ball like this coming over your shoulder, you want to catch it above your shoulders because once it crosses your eye level, it it's like you're blinking. It's so hard to track, but somehow his hands are there, perfect spot, catches it, goes in for the win. I just think the tandem of those two is going to be hard to stop this weekend. But
And
Hamburg has a great defense, so we'll see. And their defensive coordinator is great as well, so I'm sure they're scheming up something.
something else I noticed too is, and you can have them both on the field at the same time because Jordan Boo is obviously not American, but you can only have two American players on the field at the same time. But the Vikings have put Xavier Edwards, the DB, at running back a few times this year. Like this play, he had a rushing touchdown in the playoffs. He also had a rushing touchdown against Barcelona when they played before, and he's just a playmaker. Wherever you put him on the field, dude. I think I mentioned this too, but we had we called when we played them in week 3. We had he was the corner to the boundary side, right? And we were supposed to run him off with I think a fade, and then the backside from the field we ran a post, and
Yeah,
it was just a big boy post. Go get open, run to that open spot. I throw this post, and I kid you not, Xavier Edwards runs from almost the sideline on the boundary side across the field and picks me off like 50 yards down the field. So that's just the type of playmaker he is too. And they got to know where he's at, at all times. Hamburg does, because he'll return kicks, he'll play running back, he'll play DB, he'll play corner, he'll play safety. Do you remember anything playing with him? Here's rushing touchdown he had.
yeah. I
Another
just
one.
know. I mean, he's uber athletic, and he he's a European vet, which I assume that's why Vienna brought him in. They've probably known about him for years. I'm not sure if this is his first season with Vienna or not, but I know he's been out in Europe for a while, so I assume that's why he's at Vienna now. And that kind of leadership helps out, especially when you have a new American to the European world of football like Jackson, who's never been overseas, can kind of teach him the ropes a little bit and help guide him along so that he's comfortable, because it's kind of a transition, whether it's culturally or whatnot. So I he's probably a guy off the field, and he's a great player on the field. So I'm excited to see what he does as well this weekend.
And you talk with Jackson a good bit, right? He's loving Vienna, right? He's liking the
Yeah.
European life.
Yeah, he loves it out there. I wouldn't be surprised if he resigns with them this offseason, assuming Vienna offers him. I don't know why they wouldn't, because he's had a hell of a year.
Yeah, and they better. He's gonna go to the XFL or something. I feel like he could play back in the States somewhere if he wanted to. But
Definitely. I mean, just before he came out to Europe, I think spring 2021. No, spring 2021 was FCF. So I think like summer/fall 2021, he was working out for NFL teams. I know he worked out
yeah,
for the Minnesota Vikings because he's from that area, and I think he might have worked out for another team. So, I mean, he's a high caliber player, and Vienna's lucky they got him.
is he from Minnesota?
Yes,
From
I'm pretty sure
Wisconsin, like
he's
you?
he's from Minneapolis area, I believe.
Okay, I didn't know if you and him and had the same ayahuasca plug as Aaron Rodgers or what's going on there. But
Right.
here's another. Here's a This is just exactly what we were talking about. Just a big kid. I mean, you don't get after him, he's gonna make you pay, and it's just is how it is. Um, I have some clips too. What I was just gonna say is how if you're Vienna, all right, switch gears from Hamburg a little bit. Where you're saying we got to stop Jordan Bua, but we obviously have to get after Jackson. But if you're Vienna, how in the world do you stop? How do you stop that run game of the Hamburg Sea Devils? What's Coach David doing to win this weekend if you're Hamburg's defense, or excuse me, if you're Vienna's defense?
You know, Vienna's linebackers they might be top three most athletic linebacker core in the league, and their D line has some monsters, but I don't think they're going to be able to stop the run game, which might be in favor to Hamburg come down the stretch, in the fourth quarter when you need to start controlling the clock because it's definitely going to be a close game. Um, I just don't think they're going to be able to stop it. So,
Okay, but like David's giving a speech to his team. He's not walking in there and he's like, "Hey guys, we're not stopping this run game." What? But I'm just
I'm
saying,
stopping it.
what are you doing? What can they do at least just on defense to at least stifle? And no one's gonna be able to stop. I think that's a good point. Like I'm kidding, but that's a good point. Like no one's gonna stop. I don't think anyone's been able to stop Hamburg's run game all year. Barcelona beat them earlier, and I think I had another video about that. Just what they did up front with mixing up the different fronts they were giving Hamburg, and it was earlier in the season, so they hadn't seen it. They probably hadn't worked on it a bunch. So as far as the defense goes, what do you do to just try and give Hamburg or make life a little tough on that offensive line and that run game, and kind of take the ball out of Tunga's hands and put it in Cisse's?
I would probably move guys up. I'm pretty sure I haven't watched film in weeks just because not really playing out there anymore. And
Okay.
with like this front, you got your three man. I'd probably walk up, so it's more like a 3-4, but then have my safety at like 7 yards. And might go man across. I know John Constant and Lamar Jordan, they're hell of a player, like both of them, incredible receivers. But like you said, I mean, you got to get into Cisse's hands and force him to make plays, whether that's with his feet or throwing the ball. But you got to load the box up.
I
Send
agree.
pressure occasionally, but really lock it up because uh, Glenn's a beast, and you got to figure out how you can slow him down because you're not going to stop him. So
I agree. I think you said it great. You're not going to stop. You're probably not going to stop Hamburg's run game. But if you're going to try to, you got to play probably man across. You got to put Edwards on their best receiver, which is probably Gene Constance, and just hey, hope that you win 50% of the time against him. And if you do,
right.
then you'll be in good shape. If they're in 3rd and 6 and 3rd and 7 instead of 3rd and 1, then you're winning as a defense. And that's not to say I don't want to. Cisse's played well. I think the way he's handled the whole situation there with kind of rotating quarterbacks, and I think he came in, first of all, to come in off the bench after the quarterback gets hurt and probably got a majority of the reps going into the playoffs, and to do what he did against the Raiders, which was play phenomenal. He's a good quarterback. I just think
Right.
as a defense, it's always about taking away what the offense does best. That's what you have to try to do. So, yeah, I would agree. I mean, load the box up. Vienna doesn't bring a lot of pressure. Just watching film, and they didn't really against us. They just trust they can. They're
Right.
just going to play down.
Their
Sorry, go ahead.
linebackers are athletic enough to hit the gaps, and their D
Yeah,
line, like I said, they're just monsters. So they're gonna get a decent push, and then just trust their linebackers to fill the gaps.
yeah, that's what. Let's see if I can find it here. Oh, here's Xavier Edwards just running one back on the surge. We can skip that. I don't feel like the surge. No, we don't want to revisit that. Go. So I think they do a good job. Vienna does. I know they did against us. Was just mixing up front. And I think it's something you have to do. Whether it's 3-man front, 4 down, 5, you put 5 guys on the line, that's tough for an offensive line to have to try and sort that out every play. So, I mean, if I were a
Right.
defensive coordinator, that's what I would be doing. And I'd probably be going 5 on the line more than not. Some sort of bear front, 5-man front, 5-2, 5-3-1, put a single high safety back there, run man like we're talking about. I think that's going to give the Vikings their best shot in
Right.
this game.
I think this is a perfect that they're probably going to run for majority of the game. If you go back to that last play, that with the 4-2-5 look, you have good athletes on the field with your DBs. It looks like Edwards is down here at the bottom, covering Mo, which is arguably the best receiver in Stuttgart. Paul's a stud as well. Um, I mean, this, how do you really coach against this? At first, I'm like, this is a punt formation, but then I saw Vandeven on under center, so I'm like, all right. But I think this is going to be the defense that Vienna is going to be running for the most part because I know Edwards is actually slot safety on the bottom side, but
Yeah, he's down here with
this will
Mo,
probably
right?
be no, he's up on the 30 slot safety. But even if you have him there, I haven't watched a lot of Hamburg games, but I imagine Jordan and Constant are going to be moving around. So even if you have a guy like him uh, off the ball that can move around with motions and just stay available, because you get a motion wheel or something to create a big play, you want your playmaker on the playmaker.
Exactly.
So I think having them off would be good. And this will probably be their base, I assume, just because they're run heavy.
And that's what there's another look that I have here, which is truly, 5 on the line, where they're walking up an outside linebacker. Like here, this is straight man across the board. This is also 3rd and 1, so of course they're going to play this. But I wouldn't be surprised if they go to this and just, more. Oh man, see, we'll run out of time. I wouldn't be surprised to see them go with this 1st and 10, 2nd and 5 looks. I mean, just straight man cover 0, walk down a linebacker, put 5 on the line, and really say, hey, beat us with the pass.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of risky though, because Vienna might get burned, but worth trying, especially early on to see if you can handle that.
Yeah. You're obviously losing a couple guys in coverage, so that's the game that Vienna's got to figure out, whether or not they're going to let Cisse try and beat him with his arm. I think it's obvious. Hamburg's game plan is going to be obvious on offense. They're run,
Right.
play action, RPO, run, play action, RPO, run. I mean, that's what
And
they
it
do,
works.
and it
I
works.
mean,
So
it's in my opinion, it's almost perfect because you get to control the clock and the ball to your discretion. So, and I think that might be what it comes down to.
all right, we got a couple minutes here. What's your final prediction? Who we got? Who am I putting my money on this weekend?
I'll let you go first.
Oh boy.
You're gonna give me a spread too?
Sure. Yeah, I'll give you a spread. Okay. So here's what I think. My head tells me that Hamburg's going to win. My heart tells me, after having played Vienna, obviously we just talked a good bit of we talked up Jackson Erdman a lot. My heart tells me Vienna. I just think that if Vienna can have those explosive plays like we were talking about, which they're going to have, whether it's Xavier Edwards, whether it's Jordan Bua, they're going to get theirs. And if they can limit, Hamburg to under 5 yards of carry, get them in some 3rd and mediums, I think they have a real shot. So here's the thing that gives me the biggest pause with this game is Vienna's kicking game. I think that if Vienna loses, it's because of their kicking game. They can't. I rarely see them kick field goals. They go for 2-point conversions every time they score. Almost. That's huge. So that's something to watch. Let's go final score. We'll go 23 14 Vienna. 23-14 Vienna. The spread, I think like if you're the Vegas books are doing anything, I feel like Hamburg's probably 2.5-point favorites. You taking the Vikings or Hamburg?
It's so tough. I mean, like you said, if Vegas are putting odds in my head, originally I'm thinking -3.5, and it's like you gotta agree with the odds, but I don't know because Vienna's is just fine. You know, they're gonna be able to handle them, and Vienna's offense is so good. I'm gonna go with 7 because Vienna's gonna go for points probably for the most part, and they'll probably miss one or two. So it's going to land at 27, and Hamburg, I think 24. It's going to be a
Okay.
tight game, but I think Vienna's just going to win because they're going to have too many explosive plays. But it's going to be interesting. That's for sure. And after speaking with a Raiders player this week, Hamburg's winning. So like it's tough. It's tough because you play Hamburg in the playoffs, Vienna twice. So you're pretty well aware each team. He chose Hamburg, so dude, it's gonna be a toss up, and this is a championship everyone expected. You know, there's no underdog, so it could go either way.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's really cool to see two teams that haven't played each other yet this season go at it. That's where if these teams play each other 10 times, it's probably split. So just who's gonna show up on Sunday. So yeah.
I also think it's great not only for the ELF but for European football because you have your Austrian team as well as a German QB led Hamburg team. You know, so like whoever wins, the story is great on both sides, and it's great for European football.
Yeah, I agree. Especially, like you said, and Hamburg was kind of one of the staples of the old NFL Europe, right? And the Vienna Vikings have obviously been around for forever. It's good to see them finally in the league, and they've been running through the league this year. Okay, so you said 27-24 Vienna. Is that what your final? Okay, all right. So I think we both got Vienna, and we might both be wrong, but hey, that's why you gotta watch.
Hey, right? It can go either way. It's a tough one.
All right. Well, we're gonna wrap up here. You got anything you're plugging? We need to follow you on socials. Go check out David. He does some cool TikTok dances. What you got going on?
No, I'm good. I got nothing to plug. I'm just living life, man.
Dude, this was fun. We need to do this for like a championship breakdown, like just kind of like what happened after the game.
Definitely.
Again, thank you very much for getting on here because I literally texted him like 30 minutes before we jumped on. So I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Peace.